Hey everyone, I'm Cyanide, your Forester guy, and let's cut to the chase. You want to build Kaeya, and I'm gonna tell you how to do it, so let's get right into it! Kaeya can be built in a few different ways, as a support physical damage dealer using his normal attacks and charge attacks, or as a purely cryo damage dealer when you use Chongyun as a support to imbue Kaeya's normal and charge attacks with cryo. If you want an idea of how you can use him in a team, I've made a team comp guide for him. I'll leave the link in the description below. This video will cover how you can build him to fill those roles, ones like I covered in that video, as well as some usage and prioritization tips with his talents and constellations. I'll start off by telling you how to build him as a physical damage dealer, then cryo damage dealer, then as a support, just so I can use an order that builds off of concepts introduced by the last one. As a physical damage dealer, while he's on the field, the majority of his damage comes from his normal attacks, even if his skill and ultimate are used off of cooldown. His skill and ultimate still do a lot of damage though, just not as much as his normal attacks. This means that we could use physical damage stats to boost our overall damage per second. A little usage tip, using his charge attack as often as you can is his best normal attack string. If you want to go a little slower on the stamina consumption, using 2 normal hits before a charge attack can help, and 4 hits to a charge attack is also an option, but it deals less damage per second. His full normal attack combo does even less overall damage per second. For your main stats, attack percent on your timepiece, physical damage bonus on your goblet, and either crit rate or crit damage for your circlet is what I think is optimal for your artifacts. Having attack percent for your circlet or goblet is okay, but you should switch to a better crit or physical piece whenever you get a good piece with those stats. I don't recommend energy recharge for your timepiece since I find it to be a big cut to what could have been a big attack stat increase, and elemental mastery is very much not useful on Kaeya. Superconduct, Frozen, and Melt are the possible reactions that Kaeya can trigger, but Superconduct is very weak, Frozen deals no damage, and it is difficult to get Melt to work for Kaeya, so increasing your Elemental Mastery to try to increase those reactions' damage is ultimately futile. If you want more information on why Melt doesn't work well with Kaeya, check out my team guide since I talk a lot about Melt there. For your substats, I would prioritize crit rate and crit damage. Try to make them balanced in a 1:2 ratio, since consistent critical hits won't do much damage without good crit damage, and you won't get many critical hits without a good crit rate. Attack percent is also very good. Energy recharge can be nice, and flat attack is okay, and the rest of the sets pretty much don't help us much. For artifact sets, the Blizzard Strayer set can be the best. This is if you are managing to freeze enemies consistently. Even without Xingqiu and Chongyun, Kaeya can still freeze enemies with Barbara's skill and his ultimate and skill. The potential crit rate we get can give us a big boost to our overall damage, since we can focus more on our crit damage to get that balance I talked about earlier. The cryo damage bonus may not help his physical charge attacks, but his skill and ultimate can make good use of this. The Bloodstained Chivalry set can be good too. A little behind the Blizzard Strayer set, but it gives us a huge boost to our physical and charge attack damage, and having charge attacks not cost stamina is a nifty bonus. Keep in mind that boosting charge attack damage does not boost the normal attack before the charge attack happens. Also, the 4-piece effect has a condition that may be difficult depending on how tanky and how many enemies there are. The Gladiator set is a little behind in terms of maximum potential compared to the other two, but the Gladiator set does not require the enemy to be frozen or kill an enemy to use the 4-piece effect, which gives us a 35% damage increase to our normal and charge attacks. Not to mention, the 2-piece set gives us an 18% attack increase. Overall, this set is great. A 2-piece Gladiator and 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry can mimic a 4-piece Gladiator, with an 18% attack boost and 25% physical damage bonus, like the 35% normal and charge attack bonus the Gladiator set gives us. It's a weaker alternative, but you can farm Bloodstained pieces to make sure you get great stats. The Retracing Bolai set gives us 40% damage increase to our normal and charge attacks when we are shielded. It doesn't have a useful 2-piece effect since Kaeya can't make shields, and we are giving up that 18% attack boost the Gladiator set gives us, but we get 5% more normal and charge attack damage. It does wind up being a little weaker in the end though, but it can be stronger than a 2-piece Gladiator 2-piece Bloodstained set if you keep your shields up. This is also an artifact set you can farm in a domain. It might sound a little dank, but a 4-piece Heart of Depth set, the one made for Hydro units, might not be so bad. It's worse than all the other sets I already talked about, but if you just so happen to have a lot of extra pieces of this set, we can get 30% damage increase to Kaeya's normal and charge attacks for 10 seconds when we use his skill. This means that this boost should be in effect all the time since his skill only has a 6-second cooldown. The 2-piece set bonus is useless, and the damage boost isn't as high as the other ones either. I would find it weird though if you had extra pieces of this set but not have enough to make a Blizzard Strayer set since they're from the same domain, but maybe you don't want to try to freeze people all the time. Understandable. The Noblesse Oblige set can be okay too. It increases your ultimate damage by 20% and gives your party a 20% attack buff after you use it. It's a shame that the burst cannot get that 20% attack boost, but this is an alright option. If you want to focus more on Kaeya himself, you could use a 2-piece gladiator set to make sure that his ultimate gets nearly the same attack boost as well. As for 4-star sets, the Berserker set can be great to help amplify your crit multipliers. To make good use of this set, make sure you stay below 70% health to get that big extra crit rate boost. This is an artifact set accessible to you normally before you start to do your domains for artifacts. The Martial Artist set is the strongest 4-piece set that you can get from domains. Lower potential than the Berserker set though. Its 2-piece effect gives us a 15% normal and charge attack damage increase, and its 4-piece gives us an additional 25% for 8 seconds by using our skill, which again should mean that the 4-piece effect should always be activated. The Braveheart set gives us an overall damage increase against healthy enemies and an 18% attack increase. It's alright. The Resolution of Shujujujujur gives us an 18% attack increase and a 30% crit rate increase to our charge attacks. I think this set could have been better if it increased the crit rate of more of our attacks, since it does not help our ultimate, skill, or that normal attack before the charge attack happens. Not bad though. All of the 4-star sets are weaker than the 5-star artifacts simply due to the higher main stats, the fact that there are more possible subset roles, and since many of the 5-star set bonuses are generally stronger anyway. They should be treated as temporary at most until you get your hands on good 5-star artifacts. Now onto weapons. The Aquila Favonia is exactly what we're looking for. A spectacular base attack and physical damage bonus as its substat, not to mention a free 20% attack increase from its effect, as well as an extra AoE hit from taking damage. I find the taking damage part a little weird, but whatever, the rest of it is great. The Summit Shaper is strong. A great base attack, huge attack percent subset, and its effect can give you up to 4% attack increases when you land hits on enemies, which doubles when you have a shield. The Summit Shaper got a lot of attack. The Primordial Jade Cutter was kinda hard for me to rank since it is possibly the best in slot for most situations. It has a low base attack as far as 5-stars go, but it has a crazy crit rate substat that can make our crit multipliers way more powerful. Its effect also gives us a 1.2% attack increase from our HP stat that it increases by 20% in the first place. Its base attack and effect are pretty good, but the crit rate makes it great. The only thing is that we don't need that much crit rate when we use the Blizzard Share set, since the set would already give us 40% on frozen enemies and another 15% if we have Cryo Resonance. If we get too much, we would get over 100%, which is pointless at that point. Point. The Jade Cutter is the best weapon when you're not using the Blizzard Share set though. The Skyrim Spine is good. Solid base attack, free 4% crit rate from its effect, and a movement and attack speed increase and 20% normal and charge attack damage increase when you ult. But its subset being energy recharge doesn't help overpower the other 5-stars. Still better than the rest of the non-5-stars though. The Blackcliff Longsword is right behind the Skyward Blade. If you use the Blizzard Share set, the crit damage subset on the Blackcliff Longsword is very powerful. You also get a 12% attack increase when you kill up to 3 enemies. At its max stat, it is stronger than the Skyward Blade, but like the 4-piece Bloodsaint set, fodder to mow down for your buff is not always available. It also has a great base attack for a 4-star. The Prototype Rancor is another weapon with the same great base attack, and it has a physical damage bonus for a substat. Its effect gives you a 4% damage increase when landing a normal or charge attack up to 4 stacks. Overall, a powerful weapon that doesn't necessarily need the Blizzard Share set to make good use of its substat. The Flute does surprisingly well. It has a decent base attack and attack percent substat. Its effect deals an extra instance of damage every 5 normal or charge attack hits. Realistically closer to every other hit or so due to a cooldown on its effect. I'll just leave it at it does surprisingly well with its extra hit, attack percent substat, and solid base attack. The Black Sword is another great option. Kinda like the Jade Cutter, there is a little redundancy when used with the Blizzard Share set in terms of its crit rate substat, but it doesn't mean that it's unwelcomed. It also gives us a 20% normal and charge attack damage increase, and damn, I feel like I've been saying normal and charge attack too much today. Solid overall. The Harbinger of Dawn has a solid base attack for 3-star weapons, but it has a handy crit damage subset, which pairs very nicely with the crit rate that the Blizzard Share set gives us. Its effect also gives us an extra 28% crit rate when we are above 90% health. This 3-star is great because of its crit stats. Cool Steel has the same base attack, but with an attack percent substat. We also get a 24% overall damage increase against enemies affected by Cryo or Hydro, which Kaeya can set up himself. An alright choice for the early game, but you have room to upgrade for sure. I kind of gave up on trying to calculate the Royal series. If you guys don't mind, I'll take a pass on this one. I'll leave it at low just to be safe, but the flute has the same base attack and attack percent substat with a less finicky effect. Plus to get this, you would have to buy it from the shop using Star Glitter. The Fillet Blade is okay. It has the same base attack and attack percent subset as Cool Steel, but its effect is that it deals an extra hit of damage, albeit a big one, but only once every 11 seconds. As for the rest of the swords, the Lion's Roar has stats you can get from other swords, and its effect shouldn't help you at all. The Iron Sting has a decent effect, increasing your overall damage when using elemental damage for up to 2 stacks, but its subset is Elemental Mastery, which, as said before, is nearly useless for Kaeya. Energy Recharge never hurts, but the rest of the weapons have it for a substat, which could have been used to help his damage output instead. Energy is not a big problem for Kaeya, he even gets Energy Recharge passively from ascending. If you have Chong Yuan as a support, making Kaeya do only cryo damage, things are a little different, but for the most part, the stats we want are identical. Attack percent for our timepiece, and either crit rate or damage for our circlet, but obviously, instead of a physical damage goblet, we would want a cryo damage goblet. We pretty much have no use for wanting physical damage stats, but we still want stats like crit rate, crit damage, attack percent, and flat attack and energy recharge are okay, but less important. Blizzard Share should be your #1 choice when building a Cryo Kaeya, assuming that you're using a freeze comp. The crit rate boost is amazing as always, and the 15% cryo damage bonus will now boost our normal and charge attacks too. The Gladiator set is still great and helps us, since it boosts our attack and normal and charge attack damage. The same goes for the Retracing Bolide set. Using the Noble Supplier set is fine to boost our ultimate damage and give us a party-wide attack boost. We could use it as a 2-piece and mix it with a 2-piece Blizzard Strider set to give us crowd damage. The Heart of Depth can be used here again too. Even though we may no longer need the physical damage bonus that the Bloodstained Chivalry set gives us, its 4-piece still gives us a considerable boost to our charge attack damage. But again, it depends on whether you can kill enemies to get this buff. The 4-star alternatives come behind in the same order as before. In my opinion, the Summit Shaper is the best for its raw power and potential buffs from its normal attacks and having a shield. The Primordial Jade Cutter seems like the next best. Its attack increase from its effect is nice and its crit raise is useful, if not borderline too much, if we use the Blizzard Strider set. The Blackcliff Longsword at its base performs pretty well with its crit damage subset if it is used along with the Blizzard Strider set, or some other source of crit rate, but if you manage to get multiple stacks of its buff, it becomes even more powerful. It won't outperform the Summit Shaper, but strong nonetheless. The Aquila Favonia is still strong. Despite not having a useful subset, its superb base power along with its free attack percent increase from its effect keeps it strong. The Black Sword is another good choice for extra crit rate and bonus damage. The Flute still does good with its attack percent subset and extra attack. Although I will mention that extra hits that come from most weapon effects deal physical damage, which means that it won't be as strong as when we invested in Kaeya physically. The Harbinger of Dawn is still strong for a 3-star, with its crit damage subset and potential extra crit rate from its effect. The Skyward Blade lands here. Honestly, I'm surprised how well the lower rarity weapons compared to surpass this 5-star. The Skyward Blade isn't bad, it's just that the other weapons have just the right stats that a Cryo Kaeya would need. Cool Steel is still a good 3-star option that you can use temporarily. It has an attack percent subset and gives you a 24% overall damage bonus. Both useful, but it would need to have higher numbers to really get up there. Prototype Rancor lands here. It has a great base power for 4-star weapons and gets attack percent buffs from using normal and charge attacks. It does not have a useful subset for a crowd damage dealer though. The Royal Longsword, Lion's Roar, and Fillet Blade don't have anything in particular to make them extremely useful here, but their attack percent subsets aren't bad. And just like before, the Iron Sting and the rest of the swords with energy recharge are not going to be very strong. But Kaeya can also be a support player by using his ultimate and skill to do damage, but most importantly, to apply cryo. His ultimate can be the talent you are planning on using him for, since it can make him apply cryo from off the field while your other damage dealer may just be going off. I don't want to make a tier list for his support build, since it really depends on what you plan on using him for. For starters, for your artifacts, you may want to look for energy recharge stats to make sure that his support capabilities are active more often. This means that this could be your primary subset that you're looking for, and you may want to make your timepiece an energy recharge one. As for the rest, you would barely be using your normal attacks, so you would pretty much be just doing cryo damage regardless, so you could use a cryo damage goblet. You can try to use a crit rate or crit damage circlet, but if you're not investing in him as much as a support, you probably wouldn't have enough crit stats to make the crit circlet useful. You could use an attack percent circlet if you don't have much other crit stats. If you aren't so worried about giving Kaeya good energy recharge, you can make his timepiece attack percent, and if you can't find a good cryo damage goblet, an attack percent one should not be too bad for a support. As for substats for a supporting Kaeya, energy recharge would be the top priority for me. Crit rate, damage, and attack percent would also be nice just to get that little extra damage from your skill and ult. The other stats are still not very useful. For your artifact sets, I think the Noblesse Oblige set is the best general purpose one, giving you a 20% damage bonus on your ultimate and giving the team a 20% attack increase. The Exile set can be decent for making sure that your team gets their ultimate up more consistently, and the Instructor set can increase your team's elemental mastery if your damage dealer relies on strong elemental reactions. As a support, he could make better use of weapons that have energy recharge as a substat, such as the Skyward Spine, Favonius Sword, Festering's Desire, Sacrificial Sword, and even the 3-star Skyrider Sword, which I tend to use a lot when I use Kaeya as a support. Keep in mind that you usually do not have to invest in a support character much to make them do their job well, which in Kaeya's case would be to just apply cryo. But if you want your Kaeya to deal a lot of damage himself, you could probably build him like you would a cryo damage dealer. But you would want to avoid items that buff or get buffs when using normal or charge attacks. Now let's look at his talents and see which ones you should prioritize. If you are using him as a main damage dealer, whether it be physical or cryo, his normal attacks are going to do the majority of his damage. So this should be your highest level talent. His ultimate also deals a substantial amount of damage. It deals damage over time, but I have found that managing to hit every possible hit of his ultimate to be tricky, since if you're too close or far, it won't land. It has the potential to be the second strongest talent if you manage to hit every hit of it. The skill deals the most single hit damage, but not by much considering its cooldown, so that would be last. If you are using him as a support, you could just leave his normal attack at level 1 and focus mostly on his ultimate. His skill might be even less useful since you probably wouldn't want to switch in, interrupting your main damage dealer just to use your skill on cooldown. His passives are nifty but not important. The first gives him back 50% of his attack as HP when hitting an enemy with his skill. The second gives you extra energy when you use your skill to freeze an enemy. Honestly, ignorable. His third passive decreases your stamina consumption when sprinting by 20%. This is pretty damn useful. His constellations are nice. His first increases the crit rate of his normal and charge attacks by 15% on cryo effective enemies, which is great, especially for freeze, cryo resonance, blizzard strider, hyper crit setups. I'll skip to the fourth constellation, which just gives you a shield when your HP is low. It's whatever. His second constellation increases the duration of his ultimate when an enemy is defeated during it. According to the wiki, the in-game description is wrong. His sixth constellation gives his ultimate an extra icicle, making it 4. With his second and sixth constellations, his ultimate will do a lot more damage, and I think it might be worthwhile to invest more in his ultimate. Along with his fifth constellation that increases its level, it might even become your main source of damage if you can use it on cooldown and have your icicles land consistently. The third constellation increases the level of his skill, which is not too important. I think his first constellation is very useful on its own, and if you already have a lot of constellations on him, his sixth will be very powerful when combined with his second and fifth ones. Okay, that was all I got for tips on how to build your Kaeya. Hopefully I gave you guys useful info and helped you guys make some decisions. Keep in mind that whatever you want to do with your characters is completely up to you, and this video was just to give you guys some ideas and advice. Comment down below if you enjoy using Kaeya and have a build you like, or if you want to try something out with him. Consider subscribing if you like what I had to say. I do Genshin Impact tips, team comps, character builds, and the occasional mess around video. Thank you for checking out my channel either way, and see you next time.